So accept my recording, please. Yeah, what I want to say about Larry again, he's probably the best storyteller in Bang. Some of his story is so compelling that even you don't want to listen, you have to listen. And which is really good for networking because if you're able to tell a story, then people are going to remember what you said because all of a sudden it makes sense. But if you're just talking about your business, then people will just tune out. So I'm looking forward to today for some of those stories, or at least one that I can sink my teeth into, not maybe not my teeth, my hand into, so I can understand it better and it will come into memory. So, Karen, anything you want to say now about Larry?
Yeah, well, one of the things is that even though your insurance and your finances and your laws are different than here in New York, in the States, um, Larry's information is really global because it's really just finding out what insurance you have. So I think we can all learn something from it. So here's Larry.
Thanks very much for your kind words, and thank you, Dave, as well, too. So I'm going to share my screen, if I may. And there we go. And that can go away. Okay, so if everyone could please let me know if you can see this screen.
Yes.
Yep, that's great. Yes.
Wonderful, thank you. I'm trying to move some stuff here. Okay, very good. Of course, it doesn't want to work right now, so let's do this. Okay, so, all right, so, okay, well, thank you so much for letting me share this information. Thank you for inviting me, Karen. It's a pleasure to see some familiar faces here as well. I've been a Bang member for over 4 years now, and really, really enjoy it. And so this is the first time I get to share kind of an expanded version of some of those stories that I've shared with folks over the years. I'm actually a certified trainer to financial advisors across Ontario. So they get a one hour training credit when they go through something a little bit longer than what we're going to go through today. And that's part of my marketing strategy. We won't talk about that now, but sometimes when I show the screen, some people say, whoa, are you exaggerating? Are you trying to instill fear, what have you? And about 7-8 years ago, when I was doing my email drip marketing campaign, the first few months of messages were kind of the cutesy little informative stuff. And I didn't like my readership. So what I did was I started sharing true stories and impactful sentences and subject lines that were based on real true stories that I learned from people over my experience. And my readership went up 600% the next month. So I think I hit something on the head whereby, okay, well, let's start talking about, it's not necessarily the most pleasant stuff, but it's real and this stuff really happens. If this stuff didn't happen, there wouldn't be exclusions in your home and auto insurance policies and so on. So forgive me for the dramatic title, but this is absolutely true. And you're going to see some examples of potential financial disasters that actually did happen to people in our community. That's what I'm trying to avoid. So P&C insurance, that stands for personal and commercial. And what that means is properties and vehicles. I'm also licensed to sell business insurance as well, but why should we even care? Well, pretty much everyone has to have insurance for these things. It's mandatory to have car insurance. If you have a mortgage, you have to have property insurance. If you have a business, you darn well should have some kind of insurance as well. So it's really seen as a need to have. I tell everybody one lawsuit can ruin your life. I am not exaggerating. You're going to see some examples. And I also ask people, nobody likes to pay for insurance. You don't get to use the stuff, whatever. You don't get to eat it, play with it, whatever, show it off, wear it. But you know what? What's worse than paying for something you never get to use? When you actually do need it and it triggers and it's not there for you. That is a horrible feeling, and that's where it can get kind of ugly. So let's take a look. First off, when I got into this business 10 years ago, my background is corporate sales in the IT services sector. I sold to Fortune 5s across North America. I built sales teams. I've always sold services. I've never sold a product. But I transitioned my career 10 years ago because I lost the compassion and I lost the hair and so on. So I like to think that there's 3 components to insurance that people really don't think about. Number one is, who is protecting you? Who sold me this stuff? Is it a broker? Is it an agent? When they sold it to me, how did they educate me? Did they talk, or did they send me something that made sense in plain English? And what happens at renewal time? Do I just get something in the mail? So is my relationship with Canada Post? So that's number one. Number two is coverages. Are you properly protected? And that's what we're going to see in a minute. It's not what you think, folks. And number three is the one that almost all of us focus on. It's price. Okay, the industry, unfortunately, focuses on price. Hey, let's bundle your home and auto, see if we can save you some money. Well, that's been around for 20 years, right? Whoop-de-doo, who cares? Fine. Nobody really seems to be talking about these other two components as well, too. And these are the things that could really impact what kind of an experience you have if you have to trigger your insurance policy. So you may hear my 10,000 competitors or so out there saying, hey, let me give you a quote and see if we can save you some money. I do not do that. I say, hey, send me your policies and let's see if you're getting all your discounts, if you're missing any coverages, and also let's see if you're paying a fair competitive price. So I don't talk about price until the end, okay? So when I, excuse me, when I present quotes, it's on an Excel spreadsheet. The coverages are explained in plain English and plain language. It is written down because I don't know about you, but I can't remember everything I can't remember what I had for dinner 2 days ago. So these things are actually written down so you could take away these documents of the document report or quote, and you can look at it again months or years later. And also, my biggest differentiator, and I want you to think about yourself in your own business, how are you different from your competitors? Okay, that's huge. Back in 2015, I started creating something called a policy audit. So it's not just quoting, it's an audit, it's a review, it's a report. And we're going to look at why the heck I did that. So let's take a look. I keep a running total of the audit reports results that I do, and I've done over 1,000 audits over the years. These are the highlights, okay? Missing one or more discounts, 36%. On the car insurance side, grossly underinsured if you're sued. I'm not talking about underinsured, I'm talking about grossly underinsured if you're sued. People are being underinsured for other things because companies put caps on these things, jewelry, watches, collections, bicycles. And here's the big one. I've identified one or more potentially claim denied items, and that's the worst thing you can hear from your insurance company. And that is a staggering number. Horrible. 2 or more potentially claim denied items, 55%. All right. So chances are, folks, you're going to fall into one of these or more categories here. The total number of issues I find on average for a house and 2 cars are 12 issues. All right. The record I've done is uncover 27 issues for somebody, and that includes 8 potential claim denied items. And when I told that particular person, it was a financial advisor, I said, by the way, here's how much commission you just paid your broker last year, and here's how they're protecting you. They were very, very angry. They were very upset, very upset. So let's take a look. Let's do a deep dive into these things. So on a policy report, it's an Excel spreadsheet. The first tab is called summary. This is an idea of what you'll see on the house part of the summary. Now, I tell everybody how much commission I earn, how much commission you get, so you have to pay from your current broker or agent. For property, it's 20% a year. It is baked into your premium that you're paying every year. So this one I did about 2 months ago. This person has 11 issues. That is not good. And of course, I'll highlight the worst thing you could hear, potential claim denied. So this is an example. So you'd see something similar for rentals, for cottages, and for cars as well on the summary tab. Okay, so let's jump into this. Now, I'm going to go through these pretty quickly. This is not a complete list of issues that I found in my audits. There's more than this, but let's just hit on some of these things. So credit consents. Now, a lot of insurance companies for home give you a discount if you've got above average credit. And 99% of the time, I find people were not asked. They have to be asked permission in order to do that. That's non-compliant. How old is the property? Okay, to give you an example, a few months ago, I audited somebody's property. It was actually built in 1910. The policy renewal said it was built in 1935. That insurance company has a rule that says we will not insure any property that's older than 1920. So they put in 1935 for whatever reason, maybe just to win the business. That is a potential claim denied. So I often see a dramatic, not often, but I sometimes see dramatic difference in the reality versus what somebody recorded just to keep your price down, win the business, but that is a potential claim denied item. So I'm looking for that. We want to know about the size of the property, and these are not city lots, of course, but these types of things may influence your coverages and ability to reimburse on a claim. Dwelling replacement. What this means is that what do they have recorded to rebuild your house to the same level of quality or better as it was before the fire, for example, if it's a total gut. This amount includes removing all the debris and the rubble as well too, and starting fresh, okay? So I'm seeing quite often people's homes are undervalued. There's a valuation tool that we all use, so it's not complicated. It's what we enter in the tool, and what we decide to record is what type of house it is in terms of extras and upgrades and so on. So that one is a common issue that I find. So, hey, people can get into a fight with their insurance company because it's hundreds of thousands of dollars difference. And we don't want to put you through that. Renovations. Do you know anybody who's done a reno on their house? Generally speaking, insurance companies want to know if you've done one that's cost 10K or more. And that's not much of a reno these days, as you know. People are, for example, redoing the ground floor of homes. They're removing walls, they're removing beams and so on, and increasing the size of the footprint. These are things companies have to know about. Identity theft. Companies quite often add a little coverage called identity theft. To the right, you're going to, well, 74% of Canadians today, it's probably higher now, have some degree of our personal data for sale on the dark web. So quite often companies will give identity theft coverage. So did your insurance person explain that to you and what it means? And also claim forgiveness. This is nice, kind of like on the car side where your company might give you a forgiveness on your first at fault. There are some companies that do the same thing for your house as well too. And it's nice to have, because once you start getting claims, that can jack up your price as well too. So I've audited policies where that company offers this, but the family didn't even know that it was offered because their insurance person never even told them. Okay, let's continue with the fun stuff. Sewer backup. Sewer backup and groundwater are the two most common water claims in the country, and that's where most of the action is going on. Karen, you guys have probably been experiencing storms and rainstorms and so on. Toronto just went through one about 4 weeks ago, and part of Toronto went through another one last weekend. So these things are significant. Sewer backup has been known to go up as high as 6 floors, 6 stories. Okay, and that's the dirty, smelly stuff from below the ground in the street as well. So companies are dropping how much they're going to give you, and they're jacking up the price for what little that you've got, and they're not explaining this stuff to people. Groundwater is water that comes in below the dirt level, so that could be walkouts, window wells, most commonly cracks in the foundation. And Mother Nature always wins. Over the years and the decades, these things crack and so on. But a lot of companies don't even give you anything for that. Did they tell you about that? And if they do give you coverage, how much is it? Because I've seen some pretty low amounts and they're dropping. Water, utility, and sewer lines. Okay, so picture your house out in the front yard. There's a delineation point between what you and what the city's responsible to fix. So some companies give coverage for that. To the right, you may see some numbers and so on. These are just a summary of some of the bad stories I've heard. This was a $12,000 sewer line that backed up in somebody's front yard, and they had to pay for it because it was on their side of the property line. So I've audited policies where the company did offer it, but the broker never even told you about it. Okay, shame on them. Smoke or vape. You're going to see an example to the right. This happened just outside of Toronto a few years back. It was $1 million fire where this fellow smoked outside, and he put a cigarette out in a dry flower planter right beside the house, and he took his kids to soccer practice, and it torched his house, and it torched the 2 roofs on either side of his property as well too, his neighbors. So he did not tell his insurance person he smoked outside. He also said, nobody ever asked me if I vaped. Has your insurance person asked you if you vape? Okay, because my underwriters, the ones I asked, said, we're going to know about that because there might be a sparking device in there. So we consider that smoking as well too. Anyhow, wood fireplaces and wood stoves. I've seen policies where it is not recorded that they have one, and their excuse is, well, I never use it. Well, the insurance company doesn't care if you use it or not. They can't control that. So it has to be recorded. If it's not recorded and documented somewhere, it will not be upheld in a court of law. Okay, so that one is one that I find quite often. This one's kind of fun. Welcome to 2024. There's a lot of companies now selling monitoring systems, obviously for fire and burglar, that's nothing new, but also for water sensors as well. But the neat thing is that in the last few years, a lot of these services are now activating or triggering the smartphone of you, mom and dad or whatever. That is not monitored by a third-party monitoring company like a phone company or ADT or whatever. In every case, when I've audited someone's policy and they're getting a discount for this, it is not a discount, and they do not have it monitored by a third company. It's going to mom and dad. That is a potential claim denied. Okay, and that one is happening more and more frequently. And finally, did your insurance person at one point before tell you that you have to put together a home inventory if something gets stolen or something's torched in a fire and you want it replaced, you want to be reimbursed? I tell everybody, go around with your smartphone and start taking videos of this stuff. You'd have to transfer it to an Excel spreadsheet if you need it, but at least you'll have a record of this stuff. Nobody's ever told me they've had this explained to them when they bought their policy. Everybody's had a claim have told me that's when they learned about it, after the fact. And guess what? It's too late. The stuff's gone. So good luck. Okay, let's continue with the house because it just doesn't stop. Questions: pool, trampoline. Here's one. You know, anybody who's got a kiln who uses it for pottery, if that thing starts a fire, that could be a potential claim denied if you've been asked that one. Outdoor kitchens, okay, this is becoming more common now. And e-bikes and e-scooters. Now, this one is becoming more prevalent, and it's becoming more of an issue because of the lithium-ion batteries are starting fires. There was a case in BC a few months ago where this thing caused a fire. The house burned down and it killed somebody. So there are companies that are stating from a property perspective, they will not reimburse you for an e-bike or an e-scooter more than $500 or $1,000, depending on what the policy says. These things can cost a few $1,000 each, but I always ask this question and I record it and write it down just in case something really, really bad happens, like the fire thing. So the more that's recorded on your policy, the better protected you're going to be. Solar panels becoming more common. Is it connected to the grid? Because there might be $40,000 of hardware up there on that roof. And if the house is torched, you want that 40K back. There are companies now saying that if your fence or your roof or your hot water tank is beyond a certain age and it causes fire or it blows down or blows off the roof, they're going to start to depreciate what they're going to pay you back by 40%, depending on the age numbers and their rules, and so on. This is happening more often because there's more windstorms and there's more damage out there. Anything that costs the insurance companies more than it did before, they're going to start to look at these things and they're going to start to nail us. Okay. Basement percent finished. That's significant because guess where the water goes? And this doesn't always stay unfinished forever. Sometimes people do finish their basements. Is the garage heated? Heating sources are, they're important because it's an additional risk and this stuff has to be written down. I've got stories from people who did not have this recorded. It just said garage. Okay, specialty items. So companies put a limit on how much they're going to give you if some of these things are, for example, stolen or lost. Jewelry. This happened a few years ago. I read where a woman, she was married, her engagement ring was $5,000 at the time. Fast forward 30 years, it got stolen. She made a claim, same insurance broker over the decades. And that's when she learned that she was only covered for $5,000. So she paid $1,000 deductible to get $5,000 back. She was out of pocket $50K because she repriced it today. She said, I would have paid the extra if I knew about this, but her broker never, ever asked her update questions about stuff. Okay. And bicycles. A couple of years ago, somebody told me their $16,000 bike was stolen. That's when they learned that they were only covered for $1,000 for their bike. And they were really upset as well, too. So have you been asked these questions? Watches, musical instruments, collections, and so on. Let's continue with the house. Liability. Quite often, liability means if you're sued, they're going to reimburse you if you're sued. Alcohol tends to do funny things to people and so on. So I've got stories where somebody fell down the stairs at his best friend's party and he was in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. That was a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. I don't know how it ended, but this stuff really does happen. Dog breed. I'm going to get into the nasty slide stories later on. Have you been asked, do you have a dog and what is the breed? Please stay tuned. We'll continue on that one. Also this one, have you been asked if, what do you do for a living? Where do you work? Do you lease a bricks and mortar office somewhere? Or do you have an employer, but you work from home 100% of the time? These are the types of questions that have to be asked, regardless of whether nobody visits your house, no clients ever visit you or not. Again, we'll see this on a nasty story slide. Do you know anyone who's got a rental? Mistakes I found, how many units are in it? I found somebody whose rental was listed on his policy as just a general rental property, where it was really a boarding room, a boarding house. Very, very different animal. That was a potential claim denied. Who's managing it? Where do they live? How far away? And vandalism. I've got one company that also offers coverages if you're vandalized or burglared on a rental. Most companies will not even do that. Let's talk about cottages. Interesting. Contents. I audited somebody's policy a few years ago, and she had on her policy, the limit for all the contents was 50 grand. She said, I did the inventory of my stuff inside the four walls. I would have been out of pocket 100 grand on top of that because this was too low, and nobody ever talked to me after they sold me the policy. Bunkies are starting to get kitchens and or bathrooms. And once they get a kitchen and a bathroom, they're not considered a bunkie anymore. It's a standalone livable dwelling. So that could be a potential claim denied as well too. An outbuilding is anything not attached to the house. This was an example last year of a fellow who added a $110,000 garage, and it had a heater in it as well too, propane heater. He said, I never knew that I should be telling my insurance person this, and the heating has to be noted as well. A couple of fun little stories here. This was an audit of a cottage I did a few years back, where it said he's got a furnace, and the fellow said, I don't have a furnace. That was misrepresentation. It could be a furnace increases the odds of not having pipes explode and burst in the wintertime. That's a potential claim denied. This one's a little bit more of an eye opener too. This fellow, his cottage said fire hall protected, which means you're within 13 kilometers of a fire station. He was on an island. It is impossible to be fire protected on an island. That kept his rate down, and not good. Decks and docks. These things could be very, very expensive, especially if it's the man-made material, glass railing systems. All these things have to be noted, because if something bad happens, you want to be reimbursed $1 for every dollar that's gone. And finally, liability. If you are sued, anything on the water is a higher risk. If you rent a property on the water, Airbnb, whatever, adds another level of risk as well too. People are getting sued for accidents, and they may not be fair, but they're still getting sued because, as you know, lawyers always win. So we'll talk about that in a bit. We're going to touch on auto here briefly as well too. Going to go through this really quickly. Wrong location. People have recorded the wrong location where they're actually living versus what it says on their policy. Retired drivers discounts. I'm seeing people getting a discount as a retired driver, but there's 3 criteria that has to be met, and you have to sign a 1-pager stating that, yes, these 3 criteria have been met. Winter tires when they don't have winter tires. Inaccurate car usage, a couple different ways. How many clicks you drive in a year? Do you ever drive to the office or to transit and park and take a bus or train? And finally, business use. Do you ever use your vehicle to go to meet a client? Do you ever go to drive to a networking event? So I know that does happen occasionally with Bang as well too. BNI members, they are often driving to a networking event. You have to have recorded at least 5% of your use is for business use. The other 95% can be for personal, for pleasure. I'm finding when I audit policies, realtors, mortgage brokers, a lot of financial advisors where it says 100% pleasure use. And in every case, the client told me wrong. So I'm wondering why a broker or an agent doesn't even know what their client does, because there's a lot of different jobs that automatically you're going to have at least 5% of business use. Don't get it. I don't get it. And finally, the liability grossly underinsured. We're going to see that in a second as well too. Group plans. Anybody on a group plan? I have a library of audited group plans. I love this section. These are just examples of different employers or associations, organizations that offer a group plan. I highlighted one of them here, home and auto insurance company employees. So these folks work for the insurance company, and they've got lots and lots of vulnerabilities, what I call red lines in their audits. Remember, we mentioned the average audit is 12 issues. Group audits, group policy audits are worse. They are worse. So what if you save a couple $100 a year? Is that going to reimburse you for the 10,000 or 100,000 or more if something bad happens and you don't get reimbursed for it? It is not. Okay. So let's talk about missing discounts really quickly. Mortgage free. I've audited policies where people paid their mortgage off 10 years ago. They're missing, and they've been out of pocket a few $1,000s because that was not refreshed or updated. Updated mechanicals, my roof, my furnace, my hot water tank. People have been replacing these because everything has a shelf life, and they've been missing a little discount because they've got no communication with their insurance person. How do you keep the water out? There's different ways to keep the water out, and some companies give you discounts for those. On the car side, this one is funny, but not so funny. I audited a policy for Grant a few years ago. He and his wife are former RBC employees, and their policies were with RBC Insurance. And on his car policy, it had her name. It said M for married. And right beside her name, it had Grant, and it said S for single. So go figure. These two have been married for 22 years at that time. Grant was missing a married driver's discount. We did the math. It came to about $2,500 he overpaid. So the point here is that if he was on a group plan with the Blue Bank, live eyeballs never look at those things. These things are produced in the back office and they're spit out to you, and it's up to you to check these things. So he asked me to please not tell his wife about that one. So widowed, quite often insurance companies might give you a married driver's discount if you're widowed. Retired. We talked about in winter tires. What if I'm sued? This is the nasty stuff. Here we go. Some examples. New pool, friend suffered a spinal injury. That one settled at 1.5 mil. That claim was denied because when he got his pool a few years earlier, he didn't know to tell his insurance person, and insurance person ignored him, just sent out paper every year. Okay. This one is a real eye opener. Do you know anybody who owns a dog? Okay, we talked about that. I've got a couple of examples of dog bite claims. One settled at $100,000, and that company said, we're going to stop paying these out, Larry, because brokers are not recording a dog on the paperwork. Okay, it's costing us too much money. This one came to me a few years ago where a cooperator's agent called me and said, Larry, can you help this lady? She's got a dog lawsuit. Her insurance company will not renew her. She's refused. She can't find insurance anywhere. I sent requests to 8 high-risk companies. Nobody would touch her because she's got an open claim that's potentially huge. They wanted nothing to do with it. So apparently that woman had to sell her house because she didn't have the $300,000 to pay off the rest of her mortgage. She had to sell her house. She couldn't get insurance. And the worst part, arguably, is that at that time, she had not heard and was waiting to see if her insurance company would say, claim denied on this lawsuit. You're out of pocket, because that could ruin her life. And think about her legacy, her kids. All right. This one happened in Toronto. A fellow hit a pedestrian. That lawsuit settled at 3.75 mil. So if you currently have, let's say, 2 million liability on your car insurance, God forbid if you only have 1, that's disgusting. But if you only had 2, your insurance company would pay that 2 mil. The 1.75 mil difference, the courts would mandate that you sell your assets and you start to liquidate your savings and your retirement funds, and then they start to garnish your income for the rest of your life until that is paid off. Okay, so this is really scary stuff that my industry does not like to share. And I think it's horrible because these stories help people understand how important this stuff could be. We talked about cottages and on water being a higher risk, people tripping and hitting their heads, catastrophic brain injuries, jet skis and boats and so on. So you have to have, in my opinion, have to have more than 2 million liability on a cottage. And this one might hit home with some of you watching today. Again, how many of you are self-employed who work out of your home office? You don't lease a bricks and mortar office. This happened a few years ago in Toronto. It was $1 million fire. This fellow was an accountant. He worked out of his house. He quit the corporate world. He never had anybody visit his house. Very, very low risk job. He had a fire. It was a total gut, $1 million fire. The bigger the claim, the more likely an insurance company is going to poke holes in your story, and they did. They found out he had a home-based business. His broker never recorded it, never asked him, and he didn't know. And they denied that claim, $1 million out of pocket. So I assume the lawyers took over from there, but it was a mess. So of all the audits I've done, only 3 times have I seen this kind of scenario properly protected with a home-based business endorsement line on your policy. That includes if you rent, a tenant policy as well as an homeowner's policy as well. And if you got clients, I guarantee we'll find some of these loopholes with them as well too. All right, why is this happening? Okay, well, is everybody asking all these questions? And are they asking them on a regular basis? Okay, or were they asked years ago and nothing has been updated? The online self-serve world is growing and it's getting worse because it's a self-education type of business model. People are just focusing on price. Oh, my uncle, my friend, the staff are so nice, or we're in a small town, everybody's fine or whatever. I've got stories of bad audit results of all of these, it doesn't matter. And finally, hey, it's not going to happen to me. What are the chances? Well, if these things didn't happen, I wouldn't be talking about these things, right? Okay, so a bit of a shameless personal promotion here. I am different from my colleagues. We already talked about the audits as well, but number 8, I highlight this one because people love this one. At annual renewal time, about a month beforehand, I try a month beforehand, you got to get an email from me. It's going to show how your price changed from last year. Okay, full transparency. I ain't going to hide. And quite frankly, it has not been good the last couple of years. Things have been going up, but I'm going to highlight this for you. Some summary of your coverages, recommendations. Have you made any specific changes to this? So you don't have to go looking in your old policy or whatever for these questions somewhere on page 6. Okay, they're going to be in front of your face. And of course, my calendar if you want to schedule a call to talk about it. So just wrapping up here, Dave, you've been very patient, folks. Thank you. If there's any interest, I do policy audits. I will waive the $100 fee for this group, as I've done with my Bang members as well too. There's 3 steps to doing an audit. Number 1, send me your current policy showing your coverages, what you're paying, and the driver details. And finally, we'll have a phone call, ask you boring questions. Step 3 is the reveal. It's the policy audit results on a spreadsheet. And I will put my best quote side by side with your current quote as well too. Really easy to understand. I encourage people, don't wait for renewal time because accidents don't know what the heck a calendar is. All right. It can happen anytime. You want to know about this stuff now. Finally, I want people to understand I am not looking to replace your current broker or your agent. That's totally up to you, whatever you are comfortable with. Okay. So wrapping up, yeah, there could be financial disasters, and there could be small things as well too. So having said all that, thank you for your patience and apologies for the speed read here, but I'll open the floor up to any questions at all. And again, thank you for letting me share all this.
Thank you, Larry. Okay, so stop the sharing so we can see everyone. All right, so we are open for I see Karen hand is up already. So Karen, go ahead.
Well, first I wanted to say thank you. I think it was a great presentation. And I think one of the reasons that Jay is enjoying the Democratic convention is because they care. He sees that they care. He sees that's, you know, a big difference. And that's what I see with you, that you care. And I think that is something that you should put down in what makes you different. And my question is, what is a bunkie?
A bunkie is like a little cabin, usually used just to sleep people in. And it's not uncommon at cottages. They call it a little bunkie, with little bunk beds in it. That's where the term originated and so on. So it's a separate little building, and some of these cottages might have multiple ones as well too.
Yeah, no, I think everything you said was just fascinating. Thank you so much.
All right, let's go, Maureen.
I've always had a home insurance, but when our building was bought out, they wanted everybody in the building to have insurance, and you had to, because I knew some people in the building that didn't have insurance, so they got the cheapest policy they could get just to satisfy the building management.
And it's not just condos and buildings and apartments and so on, it is rampant. My industry is horrible at focusing on price. And how do you know if you're properly protected? And there's two ways. One, we do an audit. Number two, something bad happens, and then you might learn the hard way.
Simple as
And that
that.
could, and that could be devastating if somebody gets sued and they are a senior, then they're going to be paying for the rest of their life. And how are they going to live? You know, because if they only have OAS and Canada pension, that's a real bummer, you know, like they're just out right on the edge.
Yeah, so Maureen, you're gonna encourage them to go to Larry and get some answers.
Yeah, that's right.
Let's get Jay up in here. Jay, come on in.
Thank you, Dave. Larry, I'm president of a motorcycle club. We've got about 67 members. Sometimes people ask me, Jay, why can't we get a group policy? Is that something you can do?
I don't know. That's a great question. The companies, there's one or two companies that are known for offering really good pricing on motorcycles, more so than others. So most of the time, my pricing with my companies isn't that competitive. That is a great question. I would not be surprised. What I would do, Jay, is I'm not trying to pass the buck here, literally pass the buck, but I would maybe call some of the dealerships, bike motorcycle dealerships, and ask them what they know, because there might be one or two already existing out there that's already been created for you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And also to that point, Jay, back to that liability. Do you have enough liability on your vehicles? That includes motorcycles. And I work with a couple of companies that sell standalone umbrella insurance, liability insurance. So if your company only covers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this other company offers up to 10 million extra, which is very useful for people who go over the border, who travel in the States, who might be snowbirds, who own property, who own rentals, or just go over the border for day shopping in Buffalo or Syracuse. Because unfortunately, Karen, with all due respect, the US is very litigious. I think you guys invented lawsuits, but anyway, so it's very, very cheap additional insurance because, as I said, only one accident can ruin people's lives and so on. So, but yeah, focus on the liability side. Keeps coming back to the lawsuit stuff. That's where the nastiest stories can happen that we don't hear about.
Thank you.
Questions? Comments?
And Lawrence was kind enough, as well as Maureen, to let me go through an audit process with you. And we did find some red lines, didn't we?
We did.
Hmm.
And if my
Right.
pricing's not competitive, go back and get stuff fixed or get it addressed. But at least now you know it's really, it really uncovers some stuff.
All right, let's get Cliff up. Come on up, Cliff.
Excellent presentation, Larry. I was interested about the reference to the couple being married. There's no discounts for long-term marriages, are there? Is that?
No, but I think you should get a gold clock from the king or something. No, no, it's
Coming up to 40 years, I thought I might be.
congratulations. No, unfortunately, it's just M for married, S for single. And if folks are living together for 3+ years, generally they'll accept that as married.
So no discount for real.
Well, only if you're married versus single. In terms of longevity, you get a pat on the back and a smile and a handshake.
Okay, just the M. Okay, okay. So you should have one there, Cliff. And so should I, Lawrence, and the rest of us. All right. Any other questions or comments?
Nothing from the home inspector.
From Benny? Yeah, well, he's gone. I was gonna put him on the spot, but he
You
disappeared.
can. I'm here. I'm just playing with my dog.
Okay. Benny, stop playing with the dog. Get a question in, your home inspector.
Yeah, well, Larry, I appreciate what you said. The point is that people don't see the pictures actually, or understand clearly what the insurance mean and the risk that they're taking. Over my years, I can tell you, I went at least a dozen of cases. That was the issue with the insurance. The one that I can clearly recall is a person that put a table saw in his garage, and I think it was a drill and one thing. He had in his mind to, when he retired, to build a little, hobby place. And guess what? He did build it up. eventually, and there was a fire. And guess what? The insurance walked and said, well, that's a business. I don't think it's a hobby. The machine that he bought was apparently industrial machine. So they classify as a business. That case went maybe 6 or 7 years between the lawyers and the courts and the mediation. And in the end of the day, he was the loser. He couldn't prove that he didn't maintain the business. So why I'm telling you guys the story, sometimes we as a people, you know, we saw, I don't know if the word is naive or too childish. We don't think one step forward that actually the property we live in is a lot of money and we should have a coverage, proper coverage, and inform people. That's including living for a long time, like to Florida, for example, when they have a vacant home, people forget to do it. And the brokers, you know what, they're overwhelmed. They have so many clients. So you need a good broker, you know.
Thank you for sharing that story. And you're right. It's we sell the stuff and then we disappear. And if you need something, you have to approach us. But we don't know what we don't know. I didn't know this stuff before I got into this business. I was ignored myself. You know, I never had a car accident. I never made a claim on my properties, and I just got a piece of paper in the mail every year. So I thought, you know what, if I'm going to get into this business and do a career change, I'm going to be different. Because you got to be different. Otherwise, you're just another commodity out there and you're competing on price. And a price this year might be a lousy price in 2 or 3 years, right?
Now, a quick question here. Interesting what Benny said, because Ben's talking about his dog, but that's not, he doesn't actually own the dog. That's his daughter's dog, and the dog comes and stays now and again, right, Ben? So
Right.
what happens in a situation when you have a visiting dog and you look after it from time to time when his daughter's away, but he doesn't actually own the dog?
That's a great question. You might be, well, you may not, you might be impacted actually, and your daughter might be impacted, because I think anybody can be sued for almost anything. It might be trivial and frivolous, but you could be sued, although that could be one of those gray areas. But when in doubt, I would just write it down on the documentation anyway, because it's better to have it written down than not.
Absolutely. At least notify somebody.
Yeah, but you know what? Everybody knows someone with a dog, and I bet they've never been asked this question before. Go ahead and ask them. Please share some of these stories with people. You know, it's not just about everybody here today. Let's try to protect as many folks as we can.
All right, good. I think we have gone through the rooms and answer a lot of these questions. So we're going to do 2 things. We're going to run around the room for 15 seconds so that everyone can say what they do. And then we're going to go into the mastermind. So I'm taking down notes, and 2 things you say a lot of is denial and liability. So the mastermind, I'm going to pick the most positive, is going to be on liability. So what are those, what's included in that? And I guess for our members in the group, do you feel comfortable that your liability is covered? But let's go around the room first and you tell us what you do. So we don't have to ask Larry what he does, right? We all know what he does. So let's start with Karen.
So my company is Picture This Photo Books, and I tell your story through your photos for businesses telling their story about their company, or for staff and clients. And the topics to pick to do a book are endless. It's anything you want to be. Jay, I have to talk to you about travel, because those are great books to do, vacation books. And that's it. My books are different, and they are whimsical, casual, or formal, and always uniquely you.
Awesome.
My information's in the chat.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask, that we all load our information in the chat at the same time. So let's go to Jay.
Thank you, Dave. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been in the travel business quarter century. People know to call me for tours, all-inclusive resorts, and cruises. Cruises even more so than I expected. Monday of this week, I was at YYZ Travel for its 38th anniversary in the business. There, other agents came to me for cruise advice. In fact, one even gave me a lead, somebody I booked this week. on a 10-night Alaskan cruise. So anytime you want to go somewhere, whether it's a resort, a hotel, another city, anytime you think of the time to cruise or fly, make Jay your travel guy.
Awesome. Thanks, Jay. Let's go to Cliff.
Well, not so much to say, really. Had a web design business for many, many years and closed that down the last couple of years. So now just in retirement, basically.
All right. Awesome. Taking care of grandkids. Wish that was me. All right. Maureen, come on up.
I'm Maureen. I live in Toronto. I'm a certified professional bookkeeper and I do tax. And so when this call is finished, I will be working hard on this lady's PayPal account. And back in 2014, she had 587 pages for PayPal and 22,000 Excel lines. It took me 4 months. It had to be converted to Canadian dollars from US. And it cost her a lot of money. So I said to her, I says, please get checks. And so now it's down, I think we're down to about 1,000 or maybe even less than that now. So, which is much better for her as it doesn't cost her as much.
Awesome. Thanks for that. Luz, come on up.
Hello guys, how are you? My name is Luz and now I am working in a spa. The name is Safari Spa. I do the marketing plan and the sales plan. My principal activity to get clients, to show all Canadians the benefits to get a good massage in Safari Spa. I'm gonna send you information. If you're interested, let me know.
Awesome. Thanks for that. Benny, come on up for me, please.
I forgot to ask everyone if anyone said good morning to anyone here. So welcome to this nice meeting this morning. It was very educational. My name is Ben Cooper, Home and Property Inspection, promoting better living, an area that you personally have a control on it. If anyone want to live better in his own little place, give me a call. Always give you a good advice. Ben Cooper, Home and Property Inspection. Remind you that for another month, I will not be around it. I'm going to a beautiful place called Cape Town, and I'll be waving you from there at the beginning of spring. When you guys going to fall, I'm going to spring.
Well, it's going to be awesome to see some of that background. So make sure we see that.
I promise. I promise.
All right. And healthy home is what Benny's talking about, because we're breathing all kind of chemicals in our homes. I'm going to go to Lawrence. I'll go to me and then I'll go to Lawrence because I want to finish with a bang. So leadership and personal development is what I do. The bottom line is to help you to get better so you perform better in any environment you enter, because wherever you go, that's going to be you. So you do want to be a better person and keep that consistent. And tools, products, services, I got it all to cover that. So, of course, Dave Berger. So now let's go to Lawrence Fox.
Good morning, everybody. Lawrence Fox, County Wizard Solutions, and I am the usually bow tie wearing, but I don't have one that goes with this shirt, but always fountain pen wielding online CPA, and I do bookkeeping and non-tax accounting for coaches, consultants, and creatives who'd rather have root canal than do their books. I'm also the human alarm clock in this house, which is why I had to disappear for a couple of seconds because I had to go wake up Gail.
And you're not going to do your tagline today?
I'm the guy to call when you absolutely, positively hate doing the books. So what you waiting for? Call already.
All right. Thanks, Lawrence. Appreciate that. Finish with a bang. Jay, you want to post your information to the public instead of just me?
Oh, yes. Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, so that everyone can see it. And
Ditto goes for Maureen. Maureen, you posted it to me, not to everybody.
right. So yeah, you want to post it to everyone. So I'm going to stop the recording because we're going to talk about liability. Okay, so let's officially stop the recording.